Amazing Mind Training for Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. This is our 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time edition, and I'm your moderator, Stanley Green. I am joined by co-host and one of our Power Thinking mobile app users and a prominent therapist in the UK, Joy Langley. And we're here, of course, to help you build these evidence-based resilience skills that came out of the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center, so that we can handle those tough times in a much more productive fashion than some folks that we see. And we actually can watch it, in social media, on television, where folks handle negative situations very poorly, and some can actually fall into a depressed state. I've known folks that I've just talked to over the past week or so who are not part of Power Thinking, but talk about things like panic attacks associated perhaps with, certain beliefs that they may have about something that may trigger certain emotions and so forth. But these are the things that happen to most of us around the world. Is probably a very small percentage that don't have challenges when there are triggers or adverse situations. And so the key for most of us in the world is to be equipped with a set of skills such that we can get stronger in key areas developed by the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center to move us forward. So we focus today on overcoming limiting beliefs. And I shared a video with you called The Four Core Beliefs That We Need to Overcome. So would love to get your thoughts about it. I'll share in a minute, maybe the process I used, which was used for the first time to select it. But I want to hear first from you all. So I first want to, and I see that Olu's in as well in the queue. So we're going to get the folks in a minute, and we want to keep your comments to 2 minutes. But I first want to greet Joy Langley out of the UK. Joy, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate having you here during Mental Health Month. Welcome.
Hi, Stanley. Thank you for having me on the show again as well. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, great. So tell us about what's your official title and your area of focus as it relates to mental health.
Yeah, I'm a qualified psychotherapist in the UK. So that means I've done a lot of work on myself, and I spent 4 years training as well. Back in the day, I've been qualified therapist now for more than 15 years. I qualified quite some time ago. And the real skill is working with human beings and gaining, on the spot information, basically. You can only read so much. You have to practice things. So, and I always think about the idea of a therapist's practice, why they call it practice. But you know what? We are always practicing at being the best that we can be in this field.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. So today, folks, as we mentioned, we're focusing on our skill, Power Thinking Resilience skill number 4, which is challenging beliefs. And it's important to go back to beliefs, many times during the course of the year, because, that's at the root of, how we respond, what we think about, and then how we respond to adversity. So I'm going to hit those 7 inner strengths and 7 skills very quickly. And then I want to go to folks on the line and then get some of their thoughts. I'll get Joy's thoughts first about the video we shared about limiting beliefs, and then we'll go to the phone lines. But remember, all the work that we do started back in the late 60s when there was a discovery of something called learned helplessness, where people can actually learn to be helpless, where they hit a setback and they feel powerless. Even though there's a way up, there are solutions, they don't see it. And resilient people, the people who are able to bounce back, have 7 strengths at a very high level. Number 1, high level of emotion regulation, that ability to stay calm under pressure. Number 2, their impulse control, their ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind. And as I mentioned those two, I want you to think about the world stage and the leaders and the interactions and all of that stuff. And think about just those two inner strengths alone. There's empathy, the ability to understand another person's experiences and emotions. Then there's self-efficacy, the belief that you have control over your ability to succeed. The belief, and this is where overcoming these limiting beliefs are very important, because if you have limiting beliefs, then it's going to be difficult to operate at a high level in terms of your self-efficacy, a belief that you have control over your ability to succeed. You'll tend to blame external factors, people. There's optimism, the view that all things will ultimately have a successful outcome. Again, that one skill, action skill of challenging beliefs, these limiting beliefs, will impact your level of optimism. There's causal analysis, the systematic way of drilling down to a root cause of a situation or problem. And then, of course, reaching out. Our limiting beliefs may affect our ability to reach out. We may believe that, well, my status is what it is. There's nothing that can be done about it. I'm not even going to bother to reach out for help. I'll try to figure it out myself. And of course, reaching out is connecting with others, taking action to move forward, to overcome those setbacks. The skills, 3 awareness skills. The first thing we have to do is be aware of what's going on in our heads. And that's learning the ABCs, the relationship between the adversity, the belief, and then that consequence. That one of those 5 big negative emotions of anger and guilt and sadness, embarrassment, anxiety. There's avoiding the thinking traps, 8 different thinking traps. I'll mention a couple: jumping to conclusions without evidence, beating ourselves up too much or personalizing, minimizing the positive things that go on in our lives and magnifying the negative, among others. And then the third awareness skill that we want to practice is being able to detect these icebergs. We talked about it recently, where, there's the conscious, what we know about, but then there's what's under the surface, which is 10 times what we're thinking about, those deep-rooted iceberg beliefs that are driving everything. The next 4 skills are action skills. Challenge the beliefs. In this case, in today's context, how do we push back on these limiting beliefs, so that we can grow and change? There's putting things in perspective, gratitude exercises, the 3 good things exercises. There's calming and focusing, deep breaths that very few people take when we're faced with those setbacks and challenges. And of course, real-time resilience. So Joy, as it relates to, limiting beliefs, what are your thoughts? And what are your thoughts about the video? And then we'll go to our phone lines.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, perhaps I'll talk about the video first. So I did watch that, and it gave 4 ideas of beliefs that might hold us back. I got a bit confused by what she said. I must admit, I'm not very good when people kind of use double negatives. But from what I could hear, she said that these are kind of myths that people believe, if I look at it in that way. So there's only one truth, she said. The other one was we can't get what we want. The third one was beliefs are not a choice. And number 4 was, I think it was seeing is believing. I think that's what she had down. So in terms of whether I agree with her or not, I wasn't sure, because I know that there are a lot more ideas that are floating around which we can hold on to. So she picked on a certain few, and I thought, okay, I'll run with it. There's only one truth. So is it true or is it false? I think everyone thinks they're right. Even when I have a disagreement with my husband, he thinks he's right. I think I'm right. But you've got to work out really what, is it worth sticking to your point, or are you going to try and see somebody else's perspective? And I've been doing a philosophy class recently as well. And they talk about just trying to see the common truth and both people working towards it. So imagine there's a parallel line. We're both working towards the same truth. And I thought that was a very good way of getting around it. We can't get what we want. That may be true. Be quite honest, sometimes we can't have what we want. And you might want to put at the end of it, yet. We can't have what we want yet. Or sometimes circumstances around us mean that we can't get certain things. So, I wasn't sure about that one. Beliefs are not a choice. Kind of confused me, be quite honest. I had to turn it around to then beliefs are a choice in order for me to understand it. And beliefs are something which we take on board. We don't actually realize that they're there. So at some point, perhaps we've forgotten that they're a choice because they feel like they're set in stone. Seeing is believing she had there. And I thought, okay, seeing is believing, it kind of threw me a bit, but it's also about, I suppose, waiting for something to it really did confuse me, seeing as believing, because sometimes you have to do things in order for them to manifest, and I think that's what she was trying to say. So I had my views on those, Stanley, and I'm sure that people, everyone listening might think, yeah, I've got a view on that too. And the other question that you asked me was around my own grasp on what beliefs are and how they fit into how I possibly work. For me, we have lots of thoughts, and I know you've spoken about that a lot. And 60 to 70,000 thoughts, that's an awful lot of thoughts. Or if we made them smaller, it's because there are lots of them are repeated thoughts, like 90% might be repeated. We're thinking that's an awful lot of repetitive thoughts. And for me, beliefs are only the solidification of a thought. So it's a thought that's repeated often enough so it feels like a truth. And that's why beliefs are not questioned. We just begin to live our lives according to these ideas. So you sometimes have to go back and look at, where did I get those ideas from? And that's going back to sometimes childhood, sometimes teenagers, sometimes teachers, work colleagues, friends. Where did I get those beliefs from? Because I always say that if you're having the life that you want and you're happy, then perhaps you don't need to question your beliefs, and you're not harming people. Another big one for me. Then you don't have to question them. But if you're getting certain sensations or discomfort, then perhaps you should be examining what you think and what you believe, because then you then are going to get into the place where you can change them, or you at least seek to change them. So I hope that kind of outlines in a nutshell.
Great. Well, let's go to our phone lines and get perspectives. Folks, if you can keep them to 2 minutes, that would be great. We have 4 people up. Anyone else, feel free to hit that *6. Let's hear first from Carla Hill. Carla, thanks for joining us. Mention where you're joining us from and your thoughts about overcoming limiting beliefs. Welcome.
Thank you, Stanley. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I agree with Dr. Joy on this video. Like she put it, double negatives. I'm more of a person that moves at what they want. I think of it as always struggling with Spanish, and my mother is bilingual. Been working with Layla on Spanish, and what I realized is, when you take the time to convert the Spanish to the English and vice versa, it's just more words. And it's like the challenge is trying to think more like in Spanish. So this person that was doing in the video, she's telling me the negative things, and I don't work that way. I had to convert from what do I want as opposed to what I don't want. And I realized the exercise is the awareness exercise. So if I don't really have some of the limiting beliefs, then it's just clutter, right? So it's I believe in win-win. Like she says, only one truth. Like just because somebody, so I'll take it in the instance in Pennsylvania, we just had an election. Now I could be for a candidate, but does that mean I have to be against the other person? No, I'm for the other person, and I'd rather not engage in all the negative stuff on the other side. So that's just me.
Yeah.
again, that was the challenge, but I get the point of realizing what is your Achilles heel and develop a plan to minimize it. So I think it was useful, but it took me a while to really process. And thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. Let's go next to we're going next to Leslie Flowers. Leslie, thanks for joining us. Mention where you're joining us from, and your thoughts about overcoming limiting beliefs. Welcome.
Thank you, Stanley, and welcome, Dr. Joy. So nice to see you. I've sent you a connection request because I love what you do. So the video was brilliant, and I'll tell you why. First, I have to acknowledge you, Stanley, because what you have done to this morning is you have brought in the study of the mind, which is distinct from conventional training. And the reason it's confusing, I spent 20 years teaching how the mind works, right? And I line edit the books and the manuscripts of psychologists. So I understand the confusion that you can have, and Carla as well. And I've been wanting to bring into this conversation how the mind works. And what I would ask you after I say one thing is, what we know is, based on our originating incidents in our lives, is that our limiting beliefs are our fears. They're the things that we experienced over and over again through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
What I know from Dr. Joy is, and I get that that's a very simplified way of looking at it. Dr. Joy, as a therapist, what would you tell me to do? Let's say that we discovered an originating incident and we figured out how bad it was for me and how it perpetuated itself through my life, right? And we recognize it, we're aware of it. What do I do as I leave your office to begin thinking differently? What one thing would you send me away with so that I can stay engaged in this particular conversation? Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Leslie. And then I'm going to go to Joy, and then we'll go to Olu and George Clark. Anyone else, feel free to hit that *6. Joy, what's your response to Leslie?
Yes, I'm going to say that's a great question. And I would definitely, as you said, once you've done the groundwork and looked at what the thought was, I'm going to encourage you to also tie the thought with an emotion. So really, when you thought that thing, what were you feeling? Or when you had a feeling, what were you thinking? So getting you to examine, almost like breaking down a mini version of a particular thought for a particular incident. Also recognizing that there are 3 items that you'll be looking at: the thought, the emotion, and also the actions or the behaviors that you end up doing, and that those 3 work together. So I really encourage you to think that there's a cycle, there's a loop. I talk about breaking the loop, and you break it either by having a different thought or by having a different feeling or by doing something differently. So I look at that as a whole. So I call it a T cycle, TEA, which is easy to remember. I'm British, cup of tea. So always look at you trying to think about that. So you're going to break down the way, the mechanics of the way something looks, so you can like reconstruct it. And you're going to reconstruct it by coming up with a different way of looking at it. So you're looking at the whole cycle as it stands, could be a negative one or a limiting one, as we're saying here. What else could I think instead? It's a bit harder to think what else could I feel instead, but you can also think what else would I like to feel? Because if you feel something, then you'll think differently. And at the end, what might I do differently? So sometimes you want to break your cycle at any of those 3 points. Coming in at the behavioral point is always easy because you think, okay, if I'm avoiding something, try it. Or if I'm sleeping for too long, then sleep less. You can have an idea of what you could change over there, because that will have a knock-on effect on what you think, and that in turn will have a knock-on effect on what you feel. So it's understanding that there are 3 parts to the system. And if you change one, it invariably changes the other. So I hope that helps.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate it. Let's go next to we're going next to Olu. Olu, thanks for joining us. Mention where you're joining us from and your thoughts about overcoming limiting beliefs. Welcome.
Hey, hi, Stanley.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Fantastic, fantastic. So, are you?
Awesome.
You're 100% now. I know you had a little bout with malaria.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm almost there.
Good.
Still feeling little, but it takes a while. It's not an issue. I wish I had had time to address it. It's Africa, and I've told you this several times before. It's kind of like the way, people in the temperate regions, in the West get flu. So it's not like a big deal. We're used to it. I mean, kids have it right from, it's supposed to be one of the highest killers of children in Africa, I believe. That's malaria. So we're kind of used to it,
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes I think maybe as one gets on in years, it knocks one down more than usual. It takes a while.
Got it.
So, yeah, thank you. So, I saw the video and I love it. Reached a lot of things, a lot of concepts, ideas, and so on and so forth. To address limiting beliefs, what they actually are. Beliefs are just, thoughts and ideas, opinions of others, thoughts that occur to us or that are shared with us, that we then hold as beliefs, that we then, basically adopt without verifying or without any, basis in reality, And the thing is that I personally have found out that when it comes to things that have to do with thoughts, just as beliefs are, tied in with emotion, particularly when they are beliefs, a lot of emotion in there, sometimes what happens is that it's kind of like that particular thought, is put into a container that is made out of lead, and the emotion is actually the lead. So even when you're speaking with people, with studies that have been carried out, full studies, verifiable, data, statements, and so on and so forth, you're not going to get through to them because you have that emotional shielding that's been built around the thought, and that is why you get people becoming extremists, people becoming violent, that they cannot entertain other people who hold a different opinion, and so on and so forth. So personally for me in my life, what I have done is to dissociate my personality, my perception of my value, my self-worth as a human being, from my beliefs, and I've worked on that over the years and even more so since I became, a part of the power thinking family, because that is what would happen. What being a part of the family would do is that it would make you pay more attention to your thoughts. You can't help it. Once you come in every week, you start paying attention to your thoughts. Now, just like every other thing becomes a habit. Over time, initially with my struggle, as I did originally when I came in, but over time, it became a part of me that almost throughout the day, now and then, I actually become conscious of my thoughts, and sometimes I actually redirect some of them by actually speaking to myself inwardly. I rephrase,
Yeah.
So the thing is that it takes a while to deal with some of these things, but we have to focus on them. We have to pay attention. We have to counter them, and we need to read. Education is key.
Yeah.
We need to verify claims, opinions. It's not just about our emotional response, to the news that we hear, to somebody speaking on YouTube channel and so on and so forth. It might appeal to us on a very deep level emotionally, but we need to verify, particularly if such pronouncements are harmful to others.
Yep.
you know, or paint others in bad ways.
Mhm.
But you see, the thing is that to be realistic,
Mhm.
so many of us are dealing with some issues in life, you know,
Yep.
earning income and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So not so many people have the time or
Yep.
care,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, have the motivation to
Right.
get into all these things.
Yep.
Thank you for this wonderful space. It really means a lot to me. You know,
Yeah.
I love what Leslie said. You know, I'm looking at Timothy's comments and then,
Yep.
you know, the perspective that Joy came from. Thank you very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Olu. Let's do this. Let's go to George Clark. We don't hear from George a lot, but he's always here, always there. George, thank you for joining us. Mention where you're joining us from and your thoughts about overcoming limiting beliefs. Welcome.
Yeah. Good morning, Power Thinking family, and indeed it's an honor to be on the call this morning. And I just want to thank Dr. Joy and all of those who have commented on this subject of, you know, unlimited beliefs. And the first thought that came to my mind when I was hearing it was, are we a community of believers in terms of us being able to appreciate our divine essence? And so what I wanted to share was, again, in terms of just, you know, some techniques that, you know, that help me to be able to appreciate the importance of self-awareness regarding this topic, being able to appreciate, you know, your interpersonal skills in terms of what you know about yourself, in terms of the truth and the things that we might deal with as we continue this life journey. But at the same time, I wanted to also, you know, mention that there are social aspects in terms of us dealing with others. But the most important thing, you know, Power Thinking family, I just wanted to share is, you know, fostering a positive mindset. I think when we have the opportunity to awaken to a new day, you know, developing or fostering that positive mindset is important, whether that's basically receiving, you know, that direct energy downloading from the sun. I think it was mentioned earlier in reference to the mind. And when we begin to appreciate how we're able to receive the, you know, the energy, you know, from the sun, and how it helps to put us into a mindset of being able to appreciate putting positive thoughts in. A lot of times too, I just try to block out negativity when we talk about unlimiting beliefs, people limiting you instead of empowering you.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, you know, what, you know, are you envisioning? You know, what are your desires? And so when we begin to listen to the divinity of the spirit within, or the soul within, you know, it gives us an opportunity to, again, to prioritize what we're doing. I know that sometimes, you know, we're going to deal with challenges, but more importantly, we can overcome them. And that's why we're on this podcast. That's why we are connected in our relationship with one another. But lastly, I'll just say, you know, we have to remember to work to recharge, you know, our battery, so to speak. But sometimes we can, you know, get heavy, you know, it gets heavy. But when we get on these calls, or when we have the opportunity to listen, to be empowered by others, it just takes us to another dimension, Stan. So I think that today, I don't want to be limited. I want to be liberated. And that's what I received this morning. Thanks for letting me share, Stan.
Wonderful. Thank you, George, for sharing. And Joy, as we wrap up, your final thoughts and how can people get in touch with you?
Yes, I mean, I agree with a lot of what's been said today. And, you know, just to bear in mind that, you know, when we think about beliefs and then we have put another word in front of it, limiting beliefs, I suppose the clue is in the word. You know, how are you limiting your thinking? And your thinking is actually limitless. I think the only thing that holds you back in terms of what you can imagine and then what you can achieve is your imagination. So let your imagination be as wild as it can be and give yourself permission to have those thoughts too. You know when it's holding you back, like the gentleman just said, you know when it's holding you back. So allow yourself to have the freedom to explore other aspects of who you are and listen to people around you who may point out aspects of you that you can't see. So always stay open to some feedback.
Fantastic. Joy, and people can get in touch with you on LinkedIn, Joy Langley. Right?
Absolutely.
And Joy does various events, very, very good events. So check her out, connect with her on LinkedIn. So I want to thank you all for being with us today. Remember, May 28th, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. We have a special panel discussion on mental health. The panel will be led by the Senior Medical Director for Behavioral Health at Independence Blue Cross. So you don't want to miss that. You'll see the event on LinkedIn. Click to sign up. You'll receive an email reminder as we get close, but we look forward to seeing you there. So folks who are online, I don't know what happened on our comments. I know there were a lot of comments on LinkedIn, but they didn't show up here. So I do apologize, folks, for that. But as we end up, folks who we're not able to acknowledge, I think there's Camila White, there's that may be Soyaka. So Soyaka, thanks for joining us. Carla, Farrell Dove, Bertie Reynolds, good to see you, and Ed Samuel, and we had George Clark and Marie Turner, and Dr. Ekman, Peg Kowalski, Layla Llewellyn, Gail Berger, good to see you, Gail. Doug Sidoti, great to see you, Doug. Lindsay Inger, great to see you. Olu, others, thank you all very much. Remember, since we spend all of our time thinking these 50,000 thoughts a day, we must think with power and utilize power thinking. Take care. Have a great day. We'll see you at 9:30 for some of you. And make sure if you're not on the Power Thinking Corp app, take that free trial. Check us out. We'll be sending positive notifications throughout the course of the day. All right. And on our platform, Joy, thank you so much for joining me and co-hosting this morning. Have a great remainder of your day. And we'll be talking to you soon. And thanks for being part of our Power Thinking family.
Thank you very much, too.
Take care.